Michel Mirowski was born in Warsaw, Poland in 1924. He was the son of kosher charcuterie owners and attended a Jewish boys' gymnasium until 1939, when the Nazis invaded Poland. Unwilling to be branded with the yellow star that isolated Jews, he rebelled against his father's wishes to stay in Warsaw. At age 15, after his mother's death in the Warsaw Ghetto, he fled to Russia, leaving behind his father and brother. He evaded capture during the Holocaust and at 19 returned to Warsaw to find he was the sole survivor in his family. To honor a promise made to his father that he would become a doctor, Dr. Mirowski attended medical school in Lyon, France, where he began studying cardiology. Under the supervision of Professor Roger Froment, he wrote his first work, a 158-page thesis on mitral commissurotomies. Knowing that as an immigrant to France he'd be unable to obtain a leading training post, he moved to Israel and became first assistant to Professor Harry Heller at Tel HaShomer Hospital. As a mentor, Dr. Heller encouraged him to pursue 2 cardiology fellowships, one at the Cardiological Institute in Mexico City, the other at Johns Hopkins Hospital. Upon completion, he returned to Israel and was appointed head of cardiology at Asaf Arofeh Hospital. At this time, Dr. Heller began suffering from recurrent VTAC. It was Dr. Heller's death due to ventricular fibrillation that motivated Dr. Mirowski to conceive of a miniature implantable device that could continuously monitor the heart and shock it back to normal rhythm. Unable to obtain funding for his project, he sought positions in the U.S., determined to introduce his concept of an ICD. In 1968, Dr. Albert Mendeloff, the chief of medicine at Sinai Hospital of Baltimore, invited Dr. Mirowski to direct the first coronary care unit and supported Dr. Mirowski's effort to develop an implantable defibrillator. At Sinai, Dr. Mirowski met Dr. Morton Mower, and together they embarked on a challenging journey to bring the concept of an ICD to fruition. Initial opposition to the project surprised them both. A video of the first animal model with an ICD ignited accusations of the dog's collapse and recovery as fabrication, and that the dog had been trained to play dead. Scorn was expressed through editorials, manuscript rejections, and diminished corporate and financial support. In 1972, a fortuitous meeting occurred with Dr. Stephen Heilman, who recognized the value of such a device. Dr. Heilman invested millions of dollars over the next 8 years to bring the concept from the benchside to the bedside. In 1980, the first successful human implant took place at Johns Hopkins, and the findings were published in the New England Journal of Medicine. 5 years later, the ICD was commercially available, impacting millions of lives and changing the field of cardiac electrophysiology forever. Dr. Mirowski and his colleagues, Drs. Morton Mower, Stephen Heilman, and Al Langer, were inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in 2002, accompanying past recipients such as Thomas Edison, Louis Pasteur, and Willem Einthoven.
The Mirowski awardee is not just the recognition of your peers, which is a lot and maybe enough, but to have the name Mirowski next to it and to all that he stands for and all that he did, not just his contributions, but his perseverance in the presence of difficulties, surmounting all these things to make this his monumental achievements is a standard that's hard to meet. So to get the Mirowski Award is very special.
It's a great honor, and certainly I think it's something that one strives to be worthy of. Michel Mirowski was a dear friend, a mentor, and a role model for me, and I think for many of us in the field. Certainly, I know that nothing I could ever do in my career would come close to accomplishing what he achieved, but to be recognized as someone who has made a contribution and to have that recognition attached to Michel's name is an extraordinary honor.
The Mirowski Award for Excellence in Clinical Cardiology and Electrophysiology celebrates the vision and legacy of Dr. Michel Mirowski and honors his distinguished career, one marked by unfettered scientific inquiry, pioneering research, and perseverance in the face of skepticism. The recipient of the award, as determined by the Mirowski Committee, is an individual of high moral character, recognized by their peers as a key opinion leader who embodies the spirit of innovation, clinical science, and collaboration in today's electrophysiology environment. Please join us in honoring the 2010 recipient of the Michel Mirowski Award for Excellence in the field of clinical cardiology and electrophysiology, Dr. Jose Jalife.
Dr. Mirowski was a pioneer in what he did, and the impact of his studies will impact human life for years to come. And I think it is a perfect fit to give this award to Dr. Jalife, because his studies also will have huge impacts on science and on human lives for years to come.
It's a very significant privilege to receive this Mirowski Award, and I'm very happy for Pepe. I think it's deserved. He has been working in the field for decades, and he built up a fundamental lab that is kind of unique. They provided a lot to the field.
I think the most important thing that I can describe about Pepe, at least from my experience of him, is his passion for science. And he is a one-of-a-kind individual in terms of his dedication, his brilliance, his ability to take very complex techniques and apply them to fundamental mechanisms of clinical importance. He's someone who really directs himself at clinical questions, but at a very basic and very fundamental level in terms of trying to understand mechanisms, which for me has always been the most exciting aspect of clinical medicine and physiology. So I think he's almost unique in that regard, or at least he's one of a very small group of people who has that passion and that capacity. He's also an extraordinary human being. He's a wonderful friend. He's someone that I feel tremendously blessed to know and to be able to share both a scientific interest and a personal friendship with.
His humanity is clear and a special part of Pepe. But he has mentored at least 70 people in his laboratory over the years. And they're really, truly not just his students or his pupils, but his family. And that relationship, I think, is special and noteworthy. I mean, we are nothing if we don't produce subsequent generations. I mean, the future lies in the people whom we train and who go into the field to continue to in their academic pursuits, so that we continue to further knowledge and learn things. And Pepe has been a giant in this regard, which is a very important contribution.
Pepe has always been on the cutting edge of giving us insight on the mechanism of several arrhythmia. The latest is atrial fibrillation, which is sort of one of the big hurdles in clinical cardiology, and his contribution has been tremendous. From giving us insight on sort of the basic mechanism to giving us clue of what we should do clinically to actually treat patients with this important and vexing problem.
Dr. Jalife is one of the founders of modern electrophysiology. His ideas, especially in the field of fibrillatory conduction, is the basis of our understanding of the mechanisms of atrial fibrillation now. And the impact of his discoveries are what's leading us to what we know now about atrial fibrillation.
I think having established the Mirowski Award is a very fine thing, and I congratulate Boston Scientific for continuing to do this. And it's come to represent one of the very special awards recognizing contributions in our field.
I think it's wonderful that the spirit of Michel Mirowski is being kept alive with this symposium and this award, and I hope that the young people in the audience take to heart the spirit of the award and the example that Michel set for so many of us in terms of his passion and commitment and his humanity. I think it's a wonderful honor and a wonderful tradition, and I hope that it continues in perpetuity.